One early morning in the 2nd century AD, the most powerful man on earth, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, was awakened by his attendant. Perhaps he was stationed in a military camp amid the Germanic campaigns, or traveling through the vast stretches of his empire, spanning from Asia Minor to Syria, Egypt, Greece, and Austria. Outside, it was still dark, cold, and quiet, and like anyone, he likely felt a natural urge to stay under the warmth of his blankets, avoiding the day's demands. But he reminded himself, was I born to live in comfort, avoiding all struggle? No, that isn't why I exist. Marcus thought about the birds, the trees, the ants, the bees, all of nature's creatures fulfilling their purpose, adding their own beauty to the world. For Marcus to shirk his duties would be to reject his very nature. His reflections, captured in his meditations, resonate with a familiar inner dialogue that many of us face each morning. When we wake up and have that brief longing to stay home, to linger in bed, it's striking to realize that even the most powerful emperor felt the same. And like us, he forced himself out of bed, placing his feet on the cold floor, ready to embrace the day. This scene is a powerful reminder. Get up, don't give in to laziness, and start working. As the philosopher Ryan Holiday once observed, our morning choices do more than shape our day. They shape who we become. Toni Morrison, the celebrated author, practiced discipline faithfully. She would rise before dawn, make a cup of coffee, and sit at her desk in her modest apartment. In the stillness, with her mind clear and the faint light of dawn spilling into the room, she would write. This morning ritual became her refuge over the years, a time to focus before the world stirred and demanded her attention. For Morrison, dawn had both a practical and spiritual meaning. Early in her career, as a single mother raising 2 young sons, she worked a demanding job as a magazine editor that took up almost all of her day. Whatever time was left was for her kids. Late nights were not an option, so she cherished those precious, quiet hours in the morning for her writing. In the time between night and day, before her sons woke up and her day got busy with calls, paperwork, and chores, she found solace. In that peaceful solitude, she could create, fully embracing her role as a writer. At 34, recently divorced, and starting her first novel, she was one of the few Black women in a male-dominated and racially biased field, feeling the weight of responsibility towards her children and her work. Despite later receiving prestigious awards like the National Book Award, the Nobel Prize, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, she remained proud of being both a dedicated mother and a successful author. Achieving this required her to wake up early every day, finding discipline and purpose in her morning routine, regardless of her enjoyment. Early rising is never easy, even for those who benefit most from it. Most people think they're not morning people, but the truth is, few naturally are. Those who master this discipline understand the importance of conserving their energy for their work, relationships, and themselves. They know that getting a full 7 to 8 hours of sleep doesn't hamper productivity, but enhances it. It allows them to harness the clarity and focus of the early hours before the world awakens and distractions mount. As Ernest Hemingway once shared, he woke early because it was a time when no one would disturb him. Yet, we can imagine that on mornings after he'd indulged too much in drinking, his productivity might have waned. It's intriguing to think how even the greatest figures might have achieved more had they consistently embraced early mornings. Mornings, studies suggest, are often the time when we're at our most confident, our minds unburdened by the day's demands. In contrast, after a long day, fatigue and stress wear down our creativity and willpower. This is why many top leaders and executives start their day by working out at dawn when they're still fresh. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Square and Twitter's founder, is another example of someone who begins his day early to mentally prepare and channel his energy. Each morning, he meditates, then runs 6 miles. There's a reason people spend this time reading, reflecting, and grounding themselves. Morning rituals aren't just habits. They're a foundation for a day shaped by purpose, discipline, and a sense of ownership over our time. In the early hours, when the world still sleeps, before the rush of the day begins, Many seize this quiet moment to focus on their most important tasks. This time is irreplaceable, offering a calm that quickly disappears once the day unfolds. Modern routines have shifted, and with technology, it's easy to get pulled immediately into notifications, emails, and social media. But a foundational morning practice is to resist that pull. By stepping away from screens, we gain clarity and control over our day. Instead of immediately checking emails or social feeds, a more intentional start might include light exercise, a walk, or perhaps journaling to organize thoughts. After that, one can turn to the day's primary tasks before finally allowing distractions like phone checking or entertainment. Jonathan Edwards, a theologian, once remarked that waking early is almost divine, hinting at a spiritual weight that mornings often carry. Perhaps it's a nod to our ancestors who rose at dawn to pray, to work in the fields, or to travel long distances before the day's heat arrived. Preparing for an effective morning doesn't start at dawn, but the night before. Take, for instance, boxer Floyd Patterson. Before his championship fight, his final preparation wasn't reviewing footage or revisiting strategy, but simply ensuring he got enough sleep. He slept nearly 12 hours the night before, and then took another 3-hour nap the following morning, conserving energy for the fight, where he ultimately defeated an exhausted champion in the 5th round. Patterson's approach to resting wasn't due to carelessness. He simply knew what was most vital to perform at his peak. True energy and effectiveness come from rest, not from pushing through exhaustion or relying on caffeine to get by. The practice of waking early and maximizing those hours is invaluable, but imagine if Toni Morrison had stayed up all night scrolling Instagram or gaming instead. She would never have channeled her morning clarity into her iconic works. Marcus Aurelius, too, wrestled with himself each morning about whether to stay in bed, and this struggle would have held a very different weight had he barely slept the night before. After a full day of responsibilities, of preparing dinner, putting kids to bed, or sorting through endless tasks, it's tempting to relax into the couch, but often, the most beneficial action is simply going to bed. Quality sleep, it turns out, resolves many of our issues. Fatigue often makes us procrastinate or rely on stimulants, leading to poor decisions and wasting time that could be spent on what truly matters. People who believe they aren't morning people often lack discipline in their nighttime routines. The best way to master the morning is to prioritize and manage the evening before. Dante wrote, "One does not find glory under a cozy blanket," but the irony is that a good night's sleep, regularly and at the right time, is what makes an energized morning possible. Seneca wisely reminded that each night, one might reflect that waking the next morning isn't guaranteed. Those who live fully know that every morning is a gift. When it's hard to get out of bed, remember your purpose, the tradition you're continuing, and the things that truly matter. Think of Marcus Aurelius or Toni Morrison, and appreciate the privilege of waking up. It's the better option compared to the final reality we all eventually face. Celebrate the chance to do what you love, and make each moment count as much as possible. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts in the comments. This support greatly helps the channel grow, and share this content with more viewers. Thank you, and see you next time.